Okay, today we're going to be talking about adding and subtracting rational numbers. So for our purposes, rational numbers, remember, are positive and negative fractions and decimals. So the good news is that all of the rules we learned about adding and subtracting integers still apply, and all of the things you learned in elementary school about adding and subtracting fractions and decimals still apply. We're just putting them all together into one problem. So the first thing we're going to do is, if we have a combination of fractions and decimals, we're going to put them all in the same form, either all fractions or all decimals. I know that everybody likes to put them in decimal form because then you can use a calculator, which you are allowed to use, but sometimes we have to leave fractions as fractions. We'll talk about that as we get going here. So since we have positives and negatives that we're adding and subtracting, we are going to use our favorite thing here, the scoreboard method. And then just some reminders from elementary school. We are going to use common denominators with fractions, and we're going to line up the decimals when we have decimal problems. So if you have a problem that has all fractions in it, then your answer should be given as a fraction. So fraction problems should have fraction answers. Decimal problems should have decimal answers. And then if you have some of each, you can decide which form you like better. But whenever you have a fraction that makes a repeating decimal, then it has to stay a fraction, and you cannot use your calculator to make it a decimal, because that would not be an exact answer. It would be an approximate answer. All right, let's jump right in and try some. So for example number 1 here, we have negative 5/8 plus 4.5. So since these are fractions, we are going to keep them fractions and give our answer as a fraction. But we do need common denominators. But even before that, I'm going to change the second fraction to an improper fraction. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. So a good common denominator would be 8. This one already has eighths. This one, if I multiply by 4, I'm going to get 36 eighths. All right, so we know that when we add fractions, we add the numerators and keep the denominator the same. So I know I'm going to have an eighth here. And then I can use a scoreboard for the numerator. I have 5 negatives and 36 positives. So the positives would win by 31, and this would be my answer. It's also okay if you make this like 3 7/8. That would also be fine. All right, moving right along. This next problem, number 2, has a combination of fractions and decimals. So in this case, you can decide what you would like to use, fractions or decimals, but negative 5/6, if I put that into my calculator, I am going to get 0.83 repeating. And remember what we said up here, if we have fractions that are repeating decimals, they have to stay fractions. So fractions it is. Let's do negative 23/24 minus 5/6, and then 5.25 as a decimal is like 5 25/100ths, or 5 1/4, or we can make this 5 times 4 plus 1 is 21/4. So plus 21/4. All right, we need common denominators. A good one with these 3 would be 24. Whoops, I don't know why I did that. All right, keep going here. So this one already is 24ths. For the second one, I'm going to multiply by 4 because 6 times 4 is 24, so 5 times 4 is 20. And then 4 times 6 is 24, so we'll do 21 times 6 here to get 126. All right, so we're going to keep the denominator the same, and we'll use a scoreboard for the numerators, and we have 23 negatives, 20 negatives, and 126 positives. So altogether, I have 43 negatives and 126 positives. So that means the positive team will win by 83 points. So this is going to be the answer. Or you can change it to a mixed number if you want to. So this could be, goes in 3 times with, I think, 11 left over. So either answer is acceptable. All right, for number 3, we have another combination of fractions and decimals. In this case, first of all, we have a double negative. Let's get rid of that because we really don't want that. So anytime we have a double negative, we're going to add. So that's good. And then I know that 3/4 equals 0.75. If you don't have that memorized, you can do 3 divided by 4 in your calculator. So in this case, we can use all decimals. So I'm going to use a scoreboard here. And I have my negatives, which are 2.3 and 3.08. And my positive, which is 0.75. So altogether on the negative side, the negative team is going to get 5.38. And the positive team is only going to get 0.75. So the negative team is going to win by 4.63. And lastly, we have one more example that has fractions and decimals. So you can decide if you want to do fractions or decimals when you're working on it. And since 3/8 as a fraction, I'll just do 3 divided by 8 in my calculator is 0.375. Then here's another situation where it might be easier to use your calculator and use decimals. So I'm going to make my scoreboard. And both of these numbers are negative. I have a negative 3.8 and a negative 0.375. So the negative team gets all the points and they win by a total of 4.175. All right, there we have it. Thanks for watching.